The cafeteria erupted in chaos as Jake Morrison, star football player and school bully, flew across the room, crashing into tables before he even realized what hit him. Silence fell as everyone turned to stare at the quiet new girl, who'd just taken down Ridgewood High's most feared student with a single move. Blood dripped from Jake's split lip as he looked up in shock, but Lena Carter just adjusted her sleeve and spoke in a voice like steel. "You should have picked someone else." From which country are you enjoying this story? Please make sure to tell us in the comments. No one knew the truth, that Lena wasn't just some transfer student. She was a ghost from a secret program designed to turn children into weapons. And as the bullies scrambled to their feet, vowing revenge, none of them realized the real danger wasn't Lena losing control. It was what would happen when she stopped holding back.
The cafeteria buzzed with noise, shouting, laughing, the clatter of plastic trays and scraping chairs. At the center table, Jake Morrison held court, his football teammates hanging on every word. He was big, loud, and used to getting his way. Teachers ignored him. Students feared him. And today, his target was the new girl. She sat alone, picking at her food, her dark hair falling over her face like a curtain. No one knew much about her. She'd shown up a week ago, quiet, keeping to herself. No friends, no drama. Just another easy mark. Jake smirked, elbowing his friend Derek. "Watch this." He swaggered over, his shadow falling across her table. She didn't look up. "Hey, transfer student," he said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "You don't talk much, huh? What's wrong? Nobody taught you how to make friends." Silence. He reached down, flicked the edge of her tray. The fork clattered. Still, she didn't react. Derek laughed. "Maybe she's deaf." Jake grinned, then flipped the tray. Food splattered across the floor. The cafeteria went quiet. Finally, she moved. Slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes locked onto Jake's. There was no fear there. No anger even. Just something cold. Calculated. He didn't like that. "You gonna cry about it?" he taunted, leaning in. She stood up. Jake was taller, broader, used to guys backing down just from his size. But she didn't step away. She just looked at him, really looked, like she was measuring him for something. Then she said very quietly, "You should walk away." He barked out a laugh. "Or what?" She moved faster than he could blink. 1 second, he was standing. The next, his back hit the floor, the wind knocked out of him. He barely registered the pain in his ribs before her foot hooked under his shoulder and flipped him onto his stomach. His face pressed into the spilled food. The cafeteria erupted. Derek lunged at her. She sidestepped, caught his wrist, twisted. He screamed as his arm bent the wrong way. Cole, the third of their little trio, swung a wild punch. She ducked, drove her elbow into his stomach, then swept his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard. Mason, the biggest of them, charged like a bull. She let him come. At the last second, she pivoted, grabbed his arm, and used his own momentum to hurl him into the lunch line. Trays and plates went flying. Silence. The whole room stared. She adjusted her sleeve, picked up her fallen bag, and walked out like nothing had happened. Outside, the bell rang. Students flinched at the sound. Jake groaned, rolling onto his back. His ribs ached. His pride hurt worse. Who the hell was this girl? And why did he suddenly feel like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life? The principal's office was small, cramped, the walls lined with trophies the school hadn't won in years. Lena sat perfectly still in the hard plastic chair, hands folded in her lap. Across from her, Principal Higgins sighed, rubbing his temples. "I've got 4 boys in the nurse's office, one with a dislocated shoulder," he said. "They're saying you attacked them." Lena didn't answer. Higgins leaned forward. "I've heard the rumors. New girl shows up out of nowhere, doesn't talk, doesn't make friends. And now this." He shook his head. "I don't like fights in my school." She met his gaze. "They started it. And you finished it." Silence. Higgins sighed again. "Look, I don't know what kind of place you came from, but here, we don't solve problems with our fists. Lena almost smiled at that. Almost. The door creaked open. A secretary poked her head in. "Mr. Higgins, Jake's father is here." Higgins paled. Lena didn't react, but her fingers tightened just slightly. This was about to get worse. The office door slammed open before Principal Higgins could respond. A mountain of a man filled the doorway, his face red with fury. Jake stood slightly behind him, looking far less confident now that his father was here. "You got some nerve," the man growled, his voice like gravel. He jabbed a thick finger in Lena's direction. "This little bitch put my boy in the hospital." Principal Higgins stood up quickly, holding out his hands. "Mr. Morrison, please." "Don't please me, Higgins." Morrison took a threatening step forward. "I want her expelled. Now." Lena stayed perfectly still in her chair. She watched the man the same way she'd watched Jake in the cafeteria, like she was studying him, noting every twitch, every shift in his stance. Higgins swallowed hard. There were witnesses who said Jake and his friends instigated. "And I say she's a dangerous freak who shouldn't be in a school with normal kids." Morrison's voice shook the trophies on the shelves. Lena's fingers twitched. Just once. The man didn't notice. He leaned down, putting his face inches from hers. "You listen here, you little..." She moved. One moment she was sitting. The next, she was standing, her chair scraping back so fast it toppled over. She didn't touch him, didn't even raise her hands, but something in her stance made the huge man instinctively take a step back. The room went dead silent. Lena spoke softly. "Your son threw my lunch on the floor." Morrison blinked. "What?" "Your son," she repeated, each word precise. "Threw my lunch on the floor. Then he put his hands on me." She tilted her head slightly. "I defended myself." Morrison's face darkened. "You broke Derek's arm." She didn't deny it. He swung first. Jake made a strangled noise behind his father. "She's lying." "She..." "Shut up, Jake." The words weren't loud, but they cut through the room like a knife. Lena didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Morrison. Something passed between them in that moment. Some understanding that made the big man hesitate. His jaw worked silently before he turned to Higgins. "I want her suspended. Minimum." Higgins looked between them, sweating. I'll need to review the security footage." "Do it." Morrison grabbed Jake's arm and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the window. The principal sank into his chair like a deflated balloon. He looked at Lena with something like fear. "What are you?" Lena righted her chair and sat back down. "Tired." Higgins opened his mouth, then closed it. He reached for the phone. "I'm calling your guardian." Lena's expression didn't change, but her shoulders tensed just slightly. "He won't answer." "We'll see about that." As Higgins dialed, Lena stared out the window. Somewhere out there, she knew they were getting closer. And now she just made herself very, very visible. The phone rang 12 times before Higgins gave up. He rubbed his temples again. "This is highly irregular." Lena said nothing. "Where are your parents?" "Dead." The word hung in the air between them. Higgins shifted uncomfortably. "Your guardian, then? The emergency contact on your file?" "Busy." Higgins sighed. "Look, Lena." The door opened again. This time it was Coach Williams, his weathered face grim. "Higgins, we need to talk. Now." The principal stood gratefully. "Wait here," he told Lena, then stepped into the hallway. Through the thin walls, she could hear their hushed conversation. "Security footage is gone," Williams was saying. "What do you mean, gone?" "Deleted. Whole system crashed right after lunch. IT says it's unrecoverable." A pause. Then quieter. "What the hell is going on with this girl?" Lena closed her eyes. She knew exactly what was going on. They'd found her. By the time Higgins returned, Lena had made her decision. She stood as he entered. "I'm leaving." Higgins blinked. "You can't just." "It wasn't a request." She slung her bag over her shoulder. "You have no proof I did anything wrong. No witnesses willing to talk. And now no footage." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "This is highly..." Improper? I know. She walked past him to the door. Tell Mr. Morrison if he or his son come near me again, next time I won't hold back. She stepped into the hallway. Students scattered like frightened birds as she passed. Whispers followed her like a wake. At her locker, a folded note waited, tucked into the vent. Lena glanced around before palming it. She didn't open it until she was outside, under the bleachers where no cameras reached. The message was short. Package compromised. Extraction tonight. Be ready. Lena crumpled the paper in her fist. She'd hoped for more time. Hoped foolishly that she could be normal for once. But hope was for people who didn't have her training. She took a deep breath and started making plans. First, she needed weapons. Second, an exit route. Third, a twig snapped behind her. Lena spun, already in a fighting stance. Jake stood there, flanked by 4 guys she didn't recognize. Bigger guys. Meaner looking. One had brass knuckles. Another held a chain. Jake's smile was ugly. Thought you could just walk away? Lena almost felt sorry for them. Almost. She dropped her bag. No, she said. I didn't. Then the first fist flew. The first punch came from the left, a hulking guy with a shaved head and tattoos peeking above his collar. He swung wide, telegraphing his move like an amateur. Lena ducked under his arm, driving her elbow into his ribs with a crack that echoed under the bleachers. He grunted, stumbling back into one of his friends. Before they could regroup, Lena was moving. She pivoted on her back foot, her leg snapping out in a vicious roundhouse kick that connected with the second attacker's jaw. His head jerked sideways, and he dropped like a sack of bricks. Jake's smirk faltered. The guy with the brass knuckles lunged next, swinging wildly. Lena caught his wrist mid-air, twisted sharply, and yanked him forward. His face met her rising knee with a wet crunch. Blood sprayed from his broken nose as he reeled backward, howling. The last 2 hesitated. One clutched his chain like a lifeline, knuckles white. The other, a wiry kid with a sneer, pulled a switchblade from his pocket. The click of the blade locking into place was loud in the sudden quiet. Lena exhaled through her nose. Knives are a bad idea. The kid with the blade sneered. Yeah. Why's that? Because, Lena said, shifting her stance slightly. Now I can't hold back. She moved like lightning. A snap kick sent the chain flying out of the first guy's hands before he could swing it. Before he could even blink, she was inside his guard, her palm slamming upward into his chin. His teeth clacked together, and he crumpled. The last one, the knife wielder, stabbed forward. Lena sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. The kid screamed as bones popped. The knife fell. Lena caught it mid-air, flipped it in her grip, and pressed the blade to his throat in one fluid motion. His breath came in ragged gasps. Jake was frozen, eyes wide. Lena didn't even look at him. She kept the knife steady against the kid's pulse. You ever pull a weapon on me again, she said, voice low, I won't stop at breaking your wrist. Understood. The kid nodded frantically. She dropped him. He scrambled back, clutching his injured arm. Silence. Then Jake found his voice. You're crazy. Lena finally turned to look at him. No, she said. I'm trained. She tossed the knife into the dirt at his feet. Pick your friends up and get out of here. And Jake. She stepped closer, watching him flinch. This is your last warning. Stay away from me. For a second, she thought he might actually listen. Then his eyes flicked past her, and his mouth curled into a shaky grin. Too late. Lena felt it before she saw it. The shift in the air, the presence behind her. She turned just in time to see the glint of a gun barrel. A man in a black suit stood at the edge of the bleachers, his weapon trained squarely on her chest. Lena Carter, he said. You're coming with us. Lena didn't move. She kept her hands loose at her sides, her breathing steady. The man with the gun wasn't alone. 2 more figures in dark suits emerged from the shadows, blocking any escape route. Jake and his friends were forgotten, scrambling away like rats. The lead man gestured with his gun. Hands where I can see them. Lena tilted her head. You're not here to kill me. No, he agreed. "But I will shoot you in the leg if you make this difficult." She believed him. Slowly, she raised her hands. One of the other men stepped forward, pulling zip ties from his pocket. Lena exhaled. "You're making a mistake." The man binding her wrists didn't answer. He yanked the plastic tight, the edges cutting into her skin. The lead holstered his gun and pulled out a phone. "Package secured," he muttered into it. "En route." They didn't bother blindfolding her. That was the first red flag. The second was the black van idling just beyond the school fence, its doors already open. Lena let them guide her forward, her mind racing. They weren't police. They weren't military. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. Private sector, then, which narrowed it down to exactly 3 organizations that would send a team after her. None of them were good news. The van's interior was stripped bare. No markings, no seats, just metal walls and a single dim light. They shoved her inside. The doors slammed shut, plunging her into near darkness. Lena closed her eyes and listened. The engine rumbled to life. Tires crunched over gravel. Then, very softly, she smiled. They'd made their first mistake. They'd assumed she was helpless. The drive lasted exactly 27 minutes. Lena counted every second, mapping turns in her head. Left out of the school, right onto the highway, northbound for 12 miles. Then off-road, the van bouncing over uneven terrain. They weren't taking her to a facility. They were taking her somewhere isolated. The van finally stopped. Doors opened. Rough hands dragged her out. Blinking against the sudden sunlight, Lena took in her surroundings. An abandoned warehouse, its windows boarded up, weeds pushing through cracks in the pavement. The lead man gripped her arm. "Move." Inside, the warehouse was cavernous, empty except for a single chair in the center of the space. A man stood beside it, his back to her, hands clasped behind him. Lena's stomach tightened. She knew that posture. The man turned. "Hello, Lena." Director Kessler. Her old handler. Lena kept her face blank. "You've lost weight." Kessler smiled thinly. "And you've gotten sloppy." He gestured to the chair. "Sit." The guards forced her down, securing her ankles to the chair legs with more zip ties. Kessler circled her slowly. "Do you know how long it took us to find you?" Lena didn't answer. 8 months, he continued. 8 months of dead ends, false leads, and wasted resources. He stopped in front of her. "You're expensive, Lena." She met his gaze. "I quit." "You don't get to quit." "I did." Kessler's smile vanished. He backhanded her across the face. Lena's head snapped to the side. Blood welled in her mouth. She spat it onto the floor. "You were our best," Kessler said, adjusting his cufflinks. "Our most promising asset. And you threw it all away for what?" "A normal life." He laughed. "You're not built for normal, Lena." She lifted her chin. "Try me." Kessler sighed. He nodded to one of the guards. "Break her." The guard stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Lena exhaled. Then she moved. The zip ties around her wrists snapped like twine. Lena had been working on them since the van, twisting her hands just so, applying pressure at the weak points. The guard barely had time to register the broken plastic before her fist connected with his throat. He gagged, stumbling back. Lena was already out of the chair, her legs free. She dislocated her thumbs to slip the ankle restraints, a trick she'd learned in training. Chaos erupted. Kessler shouted orders. Guards lunged for her. Lena fought like a storm. She disarmed the first guard with a sharp twist of his wrist, turning his own gun against him. A single shot to the knee dropped him screaming. The second guard came at her with a knife. She dodged, grabbed his arm, and used his momentum to flip him onto his back. His head hit concrete with a sickening crack. Kessler was backing away, his face pale. "You can't win this, Lena." She didn't answer. She was already moving toward the exit. A bullet whizzed past her ear. She ducked, rolled, came up behind a support beam. Kessler had his own gun out now. "You walk out that door, you're dead." Lena peered around the beam. 3 guards left, all armed. Kessler was staying back, letting them handle her. She needed a distraction. Her eyes landed on the van. Keys still in the ignition. Lena took a deep breath. Then she ran. Bullets chased her across the warehouse. One grazed her shoulder, hot pain searing through her, but she didn't stop. She dove into the van, slamming the door shut just as another bullet shattered the window. Glass rained down around her. The engine roared to life. Lena threw the van into reverse, tires screeching. Guards scattered. She yanked the wheel, spinning the vehicle around, then slammed the gas. The warehouse doors exploded outward as the van plowed through them. In the rearview mirror, she saw Kessler shouting into a phone, his face twisted with rage. She didn't slow down. The road was rough, unpaved. The van bounced violently, but Lena kept her grip tight on the wheel. She needed distance, needed time to think. Her shoulder burned. Blood soaked through her shirt. She clenched her jaw and kept driving. They'd found her once. They'd find her again. And next time, they wouldn't bother talking. The van shuddered as Lena forced it down the dirt road, dust clouding behind her in thick plumes. She didn't slow until the warehouse was long out of sight, until the trees grew thicker and the road turned to little more than a deer trail. Only then did she let her grip on the wheel loosen slightly, her knuckles aching from how tightly she'd been holding on. She needed to ditch the van. It was the first thing they'd look for. A narrow break in the trees appeared ahead, an old logging path, barely visible beneath overgrown brush. Lena turned sharply, branches scraping against the sides as the van lurched forward. Another 100 yards and the path ended abruptly at a shallow creek. Perfect. Killing the engine, Lena sat for a moment in the sudden silence. Her shoulder throbbed. The bullet had only grazed her, but it still burned like hell. She ripped a strip of fabric from the hem of her shirt and tied it tightly around the wound, hissing through her teeth as she pulled the makeshift bandage tight. First things first. She needed to know what she was dealing with. The van's glove compartment yielded nothing useful. No registration, no paperwork. Just a half-empty bottle of water and a cheap burner phone. Lena flipped the phone open. No contacts, no call history. But when she checked the recent messages, one thread stood out. Package located at Ridgewood High. Move in at 1400. Sent 2 hours ago. Lena's stomach twisted. They'd been watching her longer than she'd thought. She scrolled further. Another message, sent just before they'd grabbed her. Secondary team en route to residence. Sweep and clear. Her breath caught. Her apartment. Everything she had, the fake IDs, the emergency cash, the weapon she'd hidden under the floorboards, all of it was there. And they were tearing it apart right now. Lena slammed the phone shut. She had two choices. Run now, disappear again with nothing but the clothes on her back. Or go back, try to salvage what she could before they found it all. The smart move was to run. But Lena had never been good at smart. She pocketed the phone and stepped out of the van. The creek was shallow enough to wade through. On the other side, the woods thickened into real forest, easy cover. If she moved fast, she could circle back toward town on foot, avoid the main roads. Her shoulder protested as she slung a discarded backpack from the van over her good arm. It was empty except for a protein bar and a multi-tool, but it was better than nothing. One last look at the van. Then she stepped into the water. The cold shock of it cleared her head. She had maybe 4 hours before full dark. 4 hours to get back, get what she needed, and vanish again. And this time, she wouldn't let them find her. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. Lena moved like a shadow, her steps soundless on the damp earth. Every few minutes she paused, listening for the telltale crunch of leaves or snap of a twig that would mean she was being followed. Nothing. That didn't mean she was safe. The sun was low by the time she reached the edge of town. From here, she could see the glow of streetlights flickering on, the occasional car passing in the distance. Her apartment was on the other side of Ridgewood, a 20-minute walk under normal circumstances. These weren't normal circumstances. Lena kept to the alleys, the back streets, the places where the cameras didn't quite reach. Her hood was up, her head down. Just another kid hurrying home before dark. She was 2 blocks away when she saw the first black SUV. It idled at the corner, windows tinted dark. No plates. Lena ducked behind a dumpster, her pulse loud in her ears. A second SUV rolled past, then a third. All identical, all moving slow, methodical. They weren't just searching her apartment. They were sweeping the entire neighborhood. Lena exhaled slowly. She needed a new plan. The back entrance to the laundromat across the street was propped open with a brick, steam billowing out into the cooling evening air. Inside, she could hear the rumble of dryers, the occasional voice over the noise. Perfect. She waited until the SUVs turned the corner, then darted across the street and slipped inside. The heat hit her like a wall. The place was nearly empty. Just an elderly woman folding clothes in the corner and a bored-looking attendant scrolling on his phone behind the counter. Neither looked up as Lena moved past the rows of machines toward the rear. The restroom door was unmarked, the lock broken. She slid inside and turned the faucet on full blast, the sound of running water covering her movements as she pulled the burner phone from her pocket. One contact. No name. Just a number she'd memorized years ago. She typed quickly. Compromised. Need extraction. Ridgewood laundromat. Back bathroom. 1 hour. Send. Then she deleted the message and dropped the phone into the toilet, watching as the screen flickered and died. Now came the hard part. Waiting. The knock came exactly 57 minutes later. 3 quick raps, then 2 slow. Lena had been standing against the wall beside the door, a broken piece of the toilet tank lid gripped tight in her hand. At the sound, she stilled, listening. No voices, no heavy breathing, just the knock. She reached over and flipped the lock. The door opened just enough for a hand to slide through, holding a neatly folded stack of clothes. Jeans, a plain black hoodie, a baseball cap. Lena took them without a word. 2 minutes, a voice murmured from the other side. Female. Young. Then we move. The door closed again. Lena changed fast. The hoodie was a size too big, the jeans loose but serviceable. The cap hid her hair, the brim shadowing her face. She pocketed the jagged piece of porcelain, better than nothing, and flushed the remains of her bloody shirt down the toilet. When she opened the door, the hallway was empty. At the far end, near the emergency exit, a figure waited. A girl about Lena's age, dressed in nearly identical clothes, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She didn't smile as Lena approached. Follow. Don't speak. They slipped out the back door into the alley. A motorcycle waited there, engine already running. The girl handed Lena a helmet. Get on. Lena didn't move. Who sent you? The girl's expression didn't change. The same person who always cleans up your messes. She revved the engine impatiently. Now are you coming? Or should I tell him you'd rather stay and play with Kessler's goons? Lena's jaw tightened, but she swung onto the bike behind the girl, gripping tight as they peeled out of the alley. The SUVs were still circling. One passed them at the intersection, its dark windows reflecting the streetlights like empty eyes. Neither of them looked back. The safe house was an unassuming duplex on the outskirts of the next town over, its porch light flickering faintly in the growing dark. The girl, who still hadn't given her name, killed the engine and dismounted in one smooth motion. Inside. Quickly. Lena followed her up the creaking steps, scanning the street automatically. No black SUVs. No suspicious vans. Just a quiet suburban neighborhood settling in for the night. The door opened before they reached it. A man stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of the interior. Tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. He didn't speak as Lena stepped past him, but she felt his gaze like a weight. The door shut with a soft click. Then, "You look like hell." Lena turned. "Nice to see you too, Marcus." The man, Marcus, shook his head. His expression was equal parts exasperation and something dangerously close to concern. 6 months. 6 months of radio silence, and the first I hear from you is a damn distress call. I was busy. Busy getting sloppy, apparently. He gestured to her shoulder. Sit down before you bleed on my floors. The girl, Lena still didn't know her name, had already disappeared deeper into the house. Marcus led the way to a sparsely furnished living room, where a first aid kit sat open on the coffee table. Lena didn't sit. How bad is it? Marcus didn't pretend to misunderstand. Kessler's got the whole eastern sector looking for you. Your face is on every watch list from here to DC. He tossed her a clean rag. So, pretty bad. Lena pressed the rag to her shoulder, the fabric soaking up fresh blood. I need new papers. A way out. It's not that simple. It never is. Marcus sighed. He looked older than Lena remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. You shouldn't have run, kid. I didn't run. Lena met his gaze evenly. I quit. And look how well that worked out for you. Silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the house, a faucet turned on, the pipes groaning in the walls. Finally, Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim envelope. Flight leaves at dawn. Fake passport, new ID, enough cash to get you started. He held it out. One-time offer. Lena didn't take it. What's the catch? No catch. His expression hardened. But you walk out that door, you're on your own. No more favors. No more extraction teams. His voice dropped. This is it, Lena. She looked at the envelope, at the man holding it. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Marcus nodded, once. Smart choice. Lena tucked the envelope into her pocket. We'll see. The girl, her name was Elise, apparently, drove her to the airport in silence. Lena spent the ride watching the city lights blur past, her fingers tracing the edge of the envelope in her pocket. Marcus had given her everything she needed to disappear. A new name. A new life. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it just felt like running. The airport was nearly empty at this hour. Elise pulled up to the departure's curb and killed the engine, finally speaking for the first time since they'd left the safe house. Gate 14B. Boarding starts in 20. Lena didn't move. Why'd you do it? Elise glanced at her. Do what? Help me. For the first time, the girl's cool mask slipped, just a little. Something like amusement flickered in her eyes. Marcus didn't tell you, did he? Tell me what? Elise reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a photograph, handing it to Lena without another word. The image was grainy, clearly taken from a security camera. It showed a younger Lena, maybe 14, standing in a line of other kids in matching gray uniforms. Training facility. And right beside her, a smaller girl with blonde braids. Lena's breath caught. You don't remember me, Elise said softly. But I remember you. She took the photo back, tucking it away. You got me out. Now I'm returning the favor. The pieces clicked into place. The other recruits. The ones who hadn't made it. The ones Kessler had written off as expendable. Lena had gotten them out. As many as she could. Before she ran. Elise nodded toward the terminal. Go. Before they realize you're not dead in a ditch somewhere. Lena opened the door. The humid night air rushed in, thick with the smell of jet fuel and distant rain. She hesitated. What about you? Elise smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I've got my own ghosts to hunt. The car door shut with a solid thunk. By the time Lena reached the terminal doors, the taillights were already disappearing into the dark. She stood there for a long moment, the envelope heavy in her pocket. Then she turned and walked inside. Not toward the gates. Toward the arrivals board. Because Lena was done running. It was time to finish this. The arrivals board flickered as flight information updated in slow, lazy waves. Lena stood beneath it, hands in her pockets, watching the names of cities scroll past. Chicago, Dallas, Miami. She wasn't going to any of them. The envelope Marcus had given her was still tucked safely away. She'd checked its contents in the bathroom stall. Passport, driver's license, social security card, all under the name Emily Carter. $5,000 in crisp hundreds. A one-way ticket to Seattle leaving at 6:15 a.m. She'd torn the ticket in half and flushed it down the toilet. Now she needed transportation. The rental car counters were all closed at this hour, but the long-term parking garage wasn't far. Lena kept her head down as she walked, sticking to the shadows where the security cameras couldn't quite reach. The baseball cap helped, the brim pulled low over her face. The garage was poorly lit, the air thick with the smell of oil and stale concrete. Rows of cars stretched into the darkness, some covered in a fine layer of dust, left here for weeks, maybe months. Perfect. Lena moved down the aisle slowly, testing door handles as she went. Most were locked. A few weren't. The third unlocked car was an older model sedan. Its paint faded, but its tires in decent shape. The interior smelled like cigarettes and fast food. Lena slid into the driver's seat and popped open the glove compartment. No registration, but a set of spare keys tumbled out. Some people were too trusting. The engine turned over on the second try. Lena gave it a minute to warm up, then pulled out of the parking spot, heading for the exit. The ticket machine at the gate spat out a stub with a loud clatter. $22 for overnight parking. Lena paid in cash, not bothering to wait for the receipt. Then she was out, merging onto the empty highway, the airport lights shrinking in her rear-view mirror. She had one stop to make before sunrise. The drive took just under 2 hours. Lena kept the speedometer at a steady 5 miles over the limit. Fast enough to make good time, slow enough not to attract attention. The roads were nearly empty at this hour, just the occasional truck or late-night traveler passing in the opposite lane. She rolled the windows down halfway, letting the cool night air keep her sharp. The wound on her shoulder had stopped bleeding, but it still ached with every turn of the steering wheel. No matter. She'd had worse. The turnoff came up faster than she expected. A narrow, unmarked road cutting through dense trees. Lena slowed, her headlights sweeping over the overgrown pavement as she guided the car onto it. This place wasn't on any maps. The road wound deeper into the woods, branches scraping against the sides of the car like skeletal fingers. Another mile, then the trees opened up abruptly, revealing a squat concrete building half buried in the hillside. No signs, no lights, just a single steel door, rusted at the edges. Lena parked and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. She sat for a moment, listening. No movement, no signs of life. Good. The keypad beside the door was old, the numbers worn nearly smooth from years of use. Lena punched in a 6-digit code, the same one she'd used when she was 16, when this place was still home. The light blinked green. The door opened with a hiss of pressurized air, revealing a dark hallway beyond. Lena stepped inside, letting it swing shut behind her. The air smelled like dust and gun oil. She didn't need lights to know where she was going. The armory was exactly as she remembered it. Rows of locked cabinets lining the walls, a heavy steel table bolted to the floor in the center of the room. Lena moved quickly, her fingers finding the hidden release on the third cabinet to the left. The lock clicked open. Inside, an assortment of weapons gleamed dully in the faint light filtering through the vents. Pistols, rifles, knives, all meticulously maintained, despite the layer of dust coating everything else in the room. Lena selected a compact Glock, checking the magazine before tucking it into the waistband of her jeans. A spare mag followed. Then a knife, short, sharp, easy to conceal. She hesitated before reaching for the last item. The case was smaller than the others, its surface unmarked. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a single syringe filled with a clear liquid. Lena picked it up, rolling it between her fingers. Emergency use only. Marcus's voice echoed in her head. Side effects include cardiac arrest. She pocketed it anyway. A noise from the hallway froze her in place. Footsteps. Too light to be Marcus. Too deliberate to be an animal. Lena drew the Glock in one smooth motion, pressing herself against the wall beside the door. The footsteps stopped just outside. Silence. Then the door creaked open. Lena had the gun leveled at the intruder's head before the door had fully opened. Elise froze, her hands raised slowly. Easy. Lena didn't lower the weapon. You followed me. Of course I did. Elise's gaze flicked to the open cabinet, then back to Lena's face. You really think Marcus would just let you walk away? He gave me a ticket, and you threw it away. Elise took a careful step forward. He knew you would. Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. Why are you here? To give you a choice. Elise reached into her jacket, slowly, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Before you go off and get yourself killed. Lena didn't take it. What is it? Kessler's itinerary. He's moving a shipment tonight. High-value targets. Elise tossed the paper onto the table between them. Or you could get on a plane and disappear. Your call. The paper sat there, stark white against the steel. Lena exhaled through her nose. Then, finally, she lowered the gun. Elise smirked. "That's what I thought." Lena picked up the paper, unfolding it with one hand. Coordinates. Times. Guard rotations. This wasn't just intel. This was a trap. And Lena was walking right into it. The coordinates led to an abandoned industrial park on the edge of the city, its chain-link fences sagging with neglect. Lena parked the stolen car a half-mile away and approached on foot, sticking to the tree line as the first hints of dawn lightened the sky. Elise had given her more than just the paper. A calm earpiece, a lightweight Kevlar vest, a fresh set of clothes, black, tactical, easier to move in than jeans, and a hoodie. She hadn't given an explanation. Lena didn't need one. The industrial park was eerily quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the highway. 3 warehouses stood in a loose cluster, their windows boarded up, their loading docks empty. All except one. The middle warehouse had a single light burning above its side door, faint but unmistakable in the pre-dawn gloom. 2 guards stood outside, their postures relaxed but their eyes sharp. Lena crouched lower, studying them. Not Kessler's usual muscle. These men were older, their movements too precise. Mercenaries, maybe. Or worse. She tapped the earpiece. "I'm in position." Elise's voice crackled back instantly. "Hold. Let me." A burst of static cut her off. Then silence. Lena frowned. "Elise." No response. The guard shifted, one reaching for his radio. Lena's stomach dropped. She'd been set up. The radio static cut out as abruptly as it had started. One of the guards frowned, tapping his earpiece before muttering something to his partner. Both men straightened, hands drifting toward their weapons. Lena didn't wait. She moved low and fast, closing the distance between the tree line and the warehouse in seconds. The guards were still scanning the perimeter when she came up behind them. A sharp elbow to the first man's kidney dropped him with a grunt. The second barely had time to turn before Lena's palm cracked into his nose, snapping his head back. He staggered, blood already streaming down his face, but she didn't give him a chance to recover. A knee to his stomach doubled him over, and a final chop to the back of his neck sent him crumpling to the pavement beside his partner. No gunfire. No alarms. So far, so good. The warehouse door was unlocked. Lena eased it open just enough to slip inside, the Glock leading the way. The interior was dimly lit, rows of rusted machinery casting long shadows across the concrete floor. At the far end, a single office glowed with fluorescent light, its blinds half closed. Voices filtered through, angry, urgent. Lena recognized one of them immediately. Kessler. She crept closer, using the machinery for cover. The office window was grimy, but she could make out 3 figures inside. Kessler, his back to the door. A man in a suit she didn't recognize. Her breath caught. Elise. Not restrained. Not under duress. Standing calmly beside Kessler, her arms crossed. Lena's grip on the Glock tightened. "Expected her hours ago," Kessler was saying, his voice tight with frustration. Asterisk, your little stunt with the radio was supposed to draw her in, not scare her off. Asterisk. Elise shrugged. Asterisk, she's not stupid. If she's not here by now, she's not coming. Asterisk. The man in the suit, balding with a neatly trimmed beard, leaned forward. Asterisk. Then we proceed without her. The shipment leaves at dawn. We can't delay any longer. Asterisk. Kessler slammed his fist on the desk. Asterisk. I didn't spend 6 months hunting her down just to let her slip away again. Asterisk. Lena had heard enough. She stepped into the open, raising the Glock. Asterisk. You should have tried harder. Asterisk. All 3 heads snapped toward her. Kessler recovered first, his lips curling into a smile. Asterisk. Lena. I knew you couldn't resist. Asterisk. Elise didn't look surprised, just resigned. The man in the suit reached for his waistband. Lena shot him in the kneecap. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse like a thunderclap. The man in the suit collapsed with a scream, clutching his shattered knee. Blood seeped between his fingers, dark and slick against the polished concrete floor. Kessler didn't flinch. He kept his hands flat on the desk, his eyes locked on Lena. That was unnecessary. Lena kept the Glock trained on him. You and I have different definitions of necessary. Elise hadn't moved. She stood perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Lena didn't look at her. Couldn't. Not yet. The man on the floor whimpered, his breath coming in ragged gasps. She shot me. Shut up, Kessler snapped. Then to Lena, you're outnumbered, outgunned. You really think you can walk out of here? Lena smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I don't plan on walking. She pulled the trigger again. The bullet tore through Kessler's shoulder, spinning him halfway around before he crashed into the wall. He slid down, leaving a smeared trail of blood behind him. Elise finally moved. Not toward Lena. Not toward Kessler. She stepped back, her hands raised. I'm not your enemy. Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. Prove it. A noise behind her. Boots on concrete. Lena spun, dropping to one knee as the first bullet whizzed past her ear. The second clipped her side, a hot line of pain across her ribs. She returned fire without hesitation. 2 shots. 2 bodies hit the floor. More footsteps. More voices shouting orders. They were surrounded. Elise grabbed her arm. This way. Lena jerked free. Why should I trust you? Elise's jaw tightened. Because you don't have a choice. A grenade rolled into the room. Lena didn't think. She lunged, tackling Elise through the office window just as the explosion ripped through the space behind them. Glass and wood and metal shrapnel peppered the air, the force of the blast hurling them both into the maze of machinery beyond. Lena hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. Smoke filled the warehouse, thick and acrid. Somewhere in the chaos, she heard Kessler coughing, swearing, calling for backup. Elise groaned beside her. That was close. Lena rolled onto her side, wincing as the wound on her ribs protested. Talk. Fast. Elise wiped blood from her lip. I was never on his side. Marcus sent me to infiltrate Kessler's operation months ago. I've been feeding him intel this whole time. Lena's head pounded. The safe house. The extraction. That was all. A cover. Yeah. Elise pushed herself up, peering through the smoke. Kessler's not just after you, Lena. He's after something you stole. Lena froze. What? Elise met her gaze. The list. The names of every recruit they've ever taken. The ones who didn't make it. The ones they disposed of. The world tilted. Lena's stomach clenched like she'd been punched. That's impossible. That list was destroyed. Then why does Kessler think you have it? Shouting erupted nearby. The smoke was starting to clear. Elise grabbed Lena's arm again, and this time, Lena let her. We need to move. Now. They crawled deeper into the machinery, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. Lena's mind raced. The list. The damn list. She'd seen it once years ago, a single sheet of paper with dozens of names, each one crossed out in red ink. She'd burned it herself. Hadn't she? Elise led them to a narrow service door hidden behind a stack of pallets. She punched in a code, the same one from the safe house, and the door clicked open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and diesel. An alley. A motorcycle. A way out. Lena hesitated. Kessler isn't the real problem. Elise shoved a helmet into her hands. The shipment they were talking about? It's kids. Lena. New recruits. They're starting over. The world went very still. Lena pulled on the helmet. Where? Elise kicked the bike to life. Get on. I'll show you. The rain started halfway across town, a fine mist that quickly turned into a downpour. Lena clung to Elise's waist as the bike wove through traffic, the city lights blurring into streaks of color through the wet visor of her helmet. Her side ached. Her shoulder burned. But the pain was distant, secondary to the storm raging in her head. Kids. They were taking kids again. The bike slowed, turning down a series of increasingly narrow streets before finally stopping in front of an unassuming brownstone. Elise killed the engine, pulling off her helmet. We're here. Lena dismounted. wincing as her ribs protested. The brownstone looked like any other in this part of the city. Well kept but nondescript, the kind of place that blended into the background. Elise led the way up the steps, punching another code into the keypad beside the door. It swung open silently, revealing a dimly lit foyer. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and gun oil. Marcus stood in the living room, his arms crossed. "Took you long enough." Lena didn't bother with greetings. "The shipment. Where is it?" Marcus exhaled through his nose. Then he turned, gesturing to the large screen mounted on the far wall. A live feed flickered to life. A private airfield, its runway lit by harsh floodlights. A small jet idled near the hangar, its stairs down. And there, lined up on the tarmac like cattle, were 24 kids. None looked older than 12. Lena's vision tunneled. "When?" "3 hours," Marcus said. "Enough time to stop it. If we move now." Elise was already strapping on a fresh vest. "Weapons. Kitchen." Lena didn't move. "Why now? Why start over after all this time?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Because they're desperate. Because you took out half their operatives when you left. Because..." He hesitated. "Because of me," a new voice said. Lena turned. A girl stood in the doorway, small, pale, her dark hair cut short. She couldn't have been more than 10. Lena's breath caught. "Who are you?" The girl stepped forward, her eyes old beyond her years. "My name is Subject 27. But you knew me as Lily." The room tilted. Lena remembered. The fire. The screams. The tiny hand reaching for hers in the smoke. She'd thought they'd all died that night. She'd been wrong. The name hit Lena like a bullet. Lily. She remembered the fire. The choking smoke. The way the girl's small fingers had slipped from her grip as the ceiling collapsed between them. She'd searched the rubble for hours afterward, digging until her hands bled. They'd told her no one survived. They'd lied. Lena's voice came out rough. "You were dead." Lily, Subject 27 shook her head. "They took me, fixed me, made me better." She held up her arm, showing the thin, surgical scars running along the inside of her wrist. "Then they started over." Marcus stepped forward. "She escaped a week ago. That's why Kessler's scrambling. That's why he's after you. He thinks you helped her." Lena's mind raced. The timeline fit. The increased patrols. The sudden urgency. Kessler wasn't just cleaning up loose ends. He was covering his tracks. Elise tossed Lena a fresh magazine. "Weapons are loaded. Gears in the back. We leave in 5. Lena caught the mag automatically, but her eyes stayed on Lily. "How many others?" The girl didn't blink. 26 before me. None after." She paused. "Until now." The screen behind them flickered, the camera zooming in on the jet's open door. A man in a white coat stood at the top of the stairs, clipboard in hand. One by one, the children were being led inside. Lena turned to Marcus. "Plan." He handed her a tablet. Blueprints of the airfield. Guard rotations. Shift changes. Elise takes the east perimeter. You and I go in through the hangar. Neutralize the guards, secure the kids, blow the jet. Lena studied the schematics. "And Lily?" Marcus hesitated. The girl answered for him. "I'm coming." "No." Lena's voice left no room for argument. "You stay here." Lily's chin lifted. "They're my friends. And you'll get them killed." Lena crouched to meet her eyes. "I couldn't save you before. Let me do this now." For a long moment, the girl held her gaze. Then, slowly, she nodded. Marcus checked his watch. "Move out." The rain had turned into a storm by the time they reached the airfield. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the chain-link fence and the guards patrolling beyond it. Lena crouched in the tree line, counting silhouettes. 6 visible. Probably twice that hidden. Marcus signaled left. Elise went right. Lena went straight. The fence was electrified, but the storm had fried the current. She cut through the links with bolt cutters, slipping inside like a shadow. The first guard died quietly, his throat opening beneath her knife before he could make a sound. The second noticed too late. Lena's bullet took him between the eyes. Alarms blared. So much for stealth. She ran for the hangar, gunfire erupting around her. A bullet grazed her thigh. Another shattered the concrete at her feet. She returned fire without breaking stride, dropping 2 more guards before reaching the side door. Marcus was already inside, his rifle barking in short, controlled bursts. Elise covered the rear, her pistol spitting lead. And there, in the center of the hangar, were the kids. Terrified, huddled together. Some crying, some too numb to react. Lena's chest tightened. The man in the white coat, the one from the jet, stood frozen, his clipboard clattering to the floor. You can't be here." Lena shot him in the kneecap. He screamed, collapsing. Marcus kicked the clipboard away. "Where's Kessler?" The man whimpered. "Gone. He left with the first group." Lena's blood ran cold. "What first group?" The man's lips peeled back in a pained grin. "You're too late." A roar of engines outside. Lena turned just in time to see a second jet taxiing down the runway, its lights cutting through the rain. No. She ran for the door, but it was already too late. The jet was moving, picking up speed. Lena raised her gun. Fired. The bullet sparked off metal. Then the jet was airborne, disappearing into the storm. Behind her, a child started to cry. The sound of the jet faded into the storm. The hangar lights flickered, casting long shadows across the faces of the remaining children. 24 had been on the tarmac. Now there were 18. Kessler had taken 6. Lena's hands shook. She clenched them into fists. Marcus grabbed the wounded scientist by the collar. Where were they going? The man spat blood. "You think I'd tell you?" Elise stepped forward, her knife glinting. "You will." Lena turned away. She couldn't watch this. Not with the kids here. A small hand tugged her sleeve. One of the boys, maybe 8 years old with a bruise darkening his cheek, looked up at her with hollow eyes. "Are you here to kill us too?" The question hit like a punch. Lena crouched to his level. "No. We're getting you out." He didn't look convinced. None of them did. Marcus's interrogation wasn't yielding results. The scientist had passed out from the pain. Elise wiped her blade clean. "We need to move. Reinforcements will be coming." Lena nodded. She turned to the children. "Listen carefully. We're going to walk out of here together. Stay close. Don't look back." The boy grabbed her hand. His fingers were ice cold. They moved as a group, Marcus leading, Elise covering the rear, Lena shepherding the kids between them. The gunfire had stopped, but the air still smelled of smoke and cordite. The first set of headlights appeared just as they reached the tree line. Lena tensed, raising her weapon, then recognized the van. Marcus exhaled. Right on time. The side door slid open, revealing Lily and a woman Lena didn't recognize. Short dark hair, military posture. The woman jumped out, scanning the kids with a practiced eye. "Medic check first. Then we move." Lena didn't argue. She helped load the children into the van, counting heads again. 18. 6 still missing. As the last child climbed in, Lily tugged Lena's sleeve. "You'll find them, right?" Lena looked at the fading contrail in the sky. "Yeah, I will." The woman in the van held out a tablet. "We tracked the jet's trajectory before they went dark. Best guess." She zoomed the map. "They're heading here." Lena stared at the coordinates. She knew that location. The first facility, where it all began. Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's a trap." Lena closed her eyes. She knew that too. The drive took 4 hours. Lena spent it cleaning her weapons and ignoring the pain in her side. The kids slept fitfully in the back, some whimpering in their sleep. Lily sat up front with a woman, Captain Vance, apparently, former military turned rogue operative. She drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tapping coordinates into a GPS. Marcus broke the silence first. "We should wait for backup." Lena didn't look up from her pistol. "There is no backup." "We could. They have 6 kids, Marcus." Lena snapped the magazine into place. "We're not waiting." The facility appeared on the horizon just before dawn, a concrete monstrosity half buried in the mountains. Lena remembered every corridor, every camera blind spot. Remembered the screams too.
Vance parked the van behind a ridge.
Satellite shows heat signatures at the west entrance. Heavy guard rotation. Elise checked her scope.
"I can take out the snipers on the ridge."
Lena strapped on her vest. "Do it." Marcus grabbed her arm. "Lena." She shook him off. "You take the kids to the safe zone. Vance knows the route. You can't go in alone." Lena checked her ammo. "I'm not." Lily stood, holding out a small device, a flash drive. "You'll need this." Lena took it. "What is it?" "Their names." Lily's voice was steady. "All of them. The ones they took. The ones they changed." The weight of it felt heavier than any weapon. Lena pocketed it. "Stay with Vance." Then she turned toward the facility. Toward Kessler. Toward the end. The first guard died before he knew what hit him.
Lena dragged his body into the shadows, stripping his keycard and radio.
Static crackled. "Report in." She crushed the radio underfoot. The west entrance was exactly where Vance said it would be. 2 more guards. Lena took them both out with silenced shots to the neck. The keycard got her through the first door. The retinal scanner was trickier. She had to prop one of the guard's eyelids open, her stomach turning at the warmth of dead flesh under her fingers. The inner doors hissed open. The smell hit her first, antiseptic and something worse underneath. The corridor was all white tile and flickering fluorescence, exactly as she remembered. Voices echoed from around the corner. Lena pressed against the wall, listening. Subject preparation is behind schedule. Kessler wants them ready by noon. She waited until the footsteps faded before moving. Room by room, she cleared the wing. Empty labs. Discarded syringes. Files shredded beyond recognition. Then she found the holding cells. 6 glass-fronted chambers. 6 children inside. But something was wrong. Their eyes. One of the kids looked up as Lena approached. His irises were wrong. Too dark. Too empty. He smiled. And then the lights went out. Lena dropped into a crouch, her gun sweeping the darkness. A child's laughter echoed through the black. Then another. And another. Red emergency lights flickered on, casting the corridor in bloody shadows. The glass chambers were empty now. The kids were loose. A whisper from her left. Lena spun. Nothing. The laughter came again, closer this time. She backed toward the wall, pulse hammering. This wasn't right. Kids didn't move like this. Didn't sound like this. Something scuttled across the ceiling. Lena looked up just as the first one dropped. It looked like a child. Moved like something else entirely.
Its fingers ended in claws. Its mouth stretched too wide.
She fired. The thing screamed, a sound no human throat should make, and lunged. Lena sidestepped, putting 2 more bullets in its back. It collapsed. Twitching. More laughter. More movement in the shadows. Kessler's voice boomed from hidden speakers. "You shouldn't have come back, Lena." She wiped blood from her lip. "You shouldn't have taken them." A door hissed open at the end of the hall. Light spilled out. Kessler stood framed in the doorway, a pistol pressed to a little girl's head. The last real child. "Surrender," he said, "or she dies." Lena lowered her weapon. And smiled. Part 30. Kessler's eyes narrowed. "You think this is funny?" Lena kept her hands visible. "I think you're predictable." The little girl in his grip, the only one not altered, not turned into one of those things, trembled. Her name tag read, Mia. Lena met her eyes. Winked. Then the lights went out again. The gunshot was deafening in the dark. Kessler screamed. Mia dropped to the floor as something heavy crashed beside her. When the emergency lights flickered back on, Kessler was on his knees, clutching his ruined hand. His pistol lay 3 feet away, a bullet hole through the grip. Lena hadn't moved. Marcus stepped out of the shadows, smoke still curling from his rifle. "Took you long enough." Elise appeared from a side corridor, dragging two unconscious scientists. Facilities secure. Vance has the kids. Kessler looked between them, his face twisting. You planned this. Lena picked up his gun. You took children, Kessler. You made them into weapons. She cocked the hammer. That was your last mistake. The shot echoed down the empty halls, just like the screams used to. Epilogue. The sun was rising when they emerged. The kids, the real ones, were bundled into vans, wrapped in blankets. Mia clung to Lena's sleeve until the last moment. You'll come back, right? Lena tucked the flash drive into the girl's pocket. This belongs to you now. Marcus waited by the car. Where to? Lena looked at the burning facility behind them, then at the road ahead. Somewhere warm. And for the first time in years,